Alright, in this video, we're going to take a look at decimals. So we're going to do an intro to decimals. So make sure you put today's date in the upper right-hand corner of your notes. So first off, let's just define what that word decimal means. So decimal is actually a Latin word, and it refers to, or it means, to be based on 10. The word DEC is a root for 10, so think of like decade. So decimal is based on 10. So decimals are important when we're looking at place value. And the position of each digit is important in the place value. So let's take a look at a number. Let's say I gave you this number, 327. From our previous unit of study, we worked on just identifying place values. So we know that the 3 is in the 100 spot. The 2 was in the 10 spot. And the 7 was in the 1 spot. What we're going to start looking at or investigating now is we're going to put in our decimal place. So remember, the decimal place always goes after the last digit of a whole number. So after the ones place, you put a decimal point. And we're going to start looking at identifying the place values after the decimal place. So the first one we have is tenths, then hundredths, and then finally, in this number, thousands. Decimal places can go on forever, so that you can keep going with 10,000s, 100,000s, millions, 10 millions, and so on. So you can keep going on with place values. What I want you to see is look at the relationship between the place values and how the numbers are, what the value of each digit is in the place value. So in the 1 spot, we know these are the ones values. In the 2 spot, these are the tens. And in the 3 spot, this is the hundreds. So if you notice, as you go to the left, your place value is increasing by multiplying by 10. 1 times 10 is 10, 10 times 10 is 100, 100 times 10 is 1,000, so forth and so on. If you go the other way, though, if you move to the right with place value, what you'll see is that your numbers are actually being divided by 10. So 100 divided by 10 is 10, 10 divided by 10 is 1, and then now here's where you get the decimal values, because 1 divided by 10 is 1/10. That's why we call it a tenth. Dividing that by 10, you get 100, so 1 100th. And then dividing that again, you get 1 1,000th. So that's where those place values are coming from. So we're going to look at with place value and decimals is being able to identify a number, to write it appropriately, to round with place value, including decimal values, comparing decimals, converting between fractions, and then just seeing decimals in word problems. So let's look at some important notes about decimals. So just a really quick one. In a whole number, the decimal point is always to the right. So for example, let's say I gave you 25. To write 25 with a decimal point, you put 25 and then go furthest to the right and put the decimal point after that 5. So it's always after the ones place. When you're reading decimals, you say the word and. So and is where the decimal point goes. And then also when you're reading numbers, the last digit in a number determines the place value. So let's look at some examples. So for example, if I gave you this number, 0 and 125 thousandths, that's how I have to say that number because the 5 is the last digit. So in word form, this is 100 25 thousandths. What about this number? 25 and 15 hundredths. So you read the whole number, so we have 25 and, which means that's a decimal point, 15 hundredths. So again, I look at the last digit and determine the place value of the last digit, and that's how I'm describing it or saying it in words. So for your practice, you're going to look at just identifying place values and then making sure you're correctly identifying a number and using it in the appropriate terminology with words. And again, you want to look at the last digit to help you identify that place value with the decimals.